Leadership Story Talks, where we discuss the practices that engage, motivate, develop, retain, and attract people to businesses. We'll give you principles and tools based on real-world stories to leverage listening and storytelling to become a better leader and management professional. Leadership Story Talks is produced by Narrative, a company that focuses on personal storytelling for business.
All right. Well, welcome to Leadership Story Talks. We're here to talk about a very special episode. We usually do these debrief episodes, and this one we're doing about our 100th episode. So very excited to have done it, and now we get to talk a little bit about the experience.
Absolutely. And it's exciting to be here. As always, it just seemed like it went so fast. We did so much planning, and it was just lovely to see the collaboration and the energy of people just getting excited to be part of it again. And lots of lessons learned. I think we have a lot of pull quotes to build on for some time. So we have to do some thinking how we want to use those.
Yeah, my big takeaway on that note is really, each story. And I really encourage people, if you haven't listened to it yet or watched it on YouTube, to go there now and do that. Because you'll notice that each story had a central figure in it that was other than the protagonist and someone that they met along the way on their journey, whether that's in their, whether that was a parent, whether that was a boss, or a colleague or a sibling, someone that kind of, or coach. Actually, there was a swimming coach story. It's the Olympics right now. And so, some of you might be thinking about that, and just kind of these people that really had an impact on them. And in the moment that happened, you don't realize that that person is still going to be influencing you 20, 30, 40 years later in some cases. I thought that was really powerful that each person had that, and that it really carries through. I think the second thing for me was just noticing that, a lot of people that came on to this 100th episode are in business for themselves, and probably half and half in terms of the 9 storytellers we had. And there's such a temptation to pitch oneself, or we're always asking ourselves, how do I pitch myself? How do I talk about my business and about myself? And I feel like these stories really showed us a way to do that, because it contained both the personal element of where you came from and who influenced you, and they were all able to tie that back to what they're doing right now. And so I think, for anyone who's listening that's interested in how do I talk about myself in such a way that doesn't feel like I'm bragging or selling or promoting myself, but I'm actually still doing that, but I'm doing it in a very natural, more personable way. That really came through for me.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up while I was waiting to get on this podcast, you were talking about like people that make a difference. And I hope this other story gets much more traction, or we should talk about it at length. You mentioned the Olympics, and Jordan Childs and Simone Biles have a very special relationship. When Jordan was, her career wasn't going so well, her history, like Simone Biles really focused on championing her and building up her esteem. So here's this young lady just won a gold, but the backstory is somebody else was championing her too. That could have taken a whole different approach and made it just all about herself. So I mean, if I thought the world is Simone Biles, now I really, really admire her even 20-fold. And I do think what we heard is the habit of not just looking at lessons learned, but how were those stories played forward to the working community when we talk to our guests, but also how they played it back to go say thank you and gratitude and listen and just acknowledge what's going on. The thing sometimes with story, we people think it's going to be a very curated experience, and it's going to sound like a script and a recitation, like a theater scenario or a recorded a commercial for a professional product. And I do think people appreciate when you put the guard down and show when things got a bit messy, when you failed, when somebody said, get out of your own way, listen more. And it makes it much more impactful. Years ago, I
Mm,
had a boss from Kentucky. I can't do her accent, but she's brilliant. She's still in my life. And she sent me off to a conference to listen to other speakers. And every presentation was so polished about the salespeople saying how great they were. And I was like, that's not reality, or everything went perfect. Every
mm,
step of the change went perfectly. The one group that I remember that was impactful was the one that got on the stage and said what disasters they encountered, but this is where we learn. And I'm like, that's a group I wouldn't mind working with, because
mm,
they were gutsy enough to really take a chance and show their true selves, and
yeah.
saying that's what's coming to the table. You're going to learn from all the other mistakes we made. You won't have to do them because we're going to help
Mm,
you show
mm,
you. But
yeah.
I thought it was fun. I mean, we should have served wine and cheese if we could have, because could
That's
have had a
right. Yeah.
celebrate. That would have been good. So I'm interesting to see where it's going to be. Curious when you and I start brainstorming about what's next. What's next?
Mm, yeah.
Next episode of live and in person celebration. And here we are. We have such a luxury of folks that have showed up and took time and been curious, and continue to do great things.
Mm. And perfect transition, because for our listeners right now, what's next is that we're going to do this again on October 22nd. It won't be exactly the same format. We can say that there will be stories. We can also say that, and we don't yet know who's going to be on it. But please, stay tuned and go to our website, narrative.com/podcast. You'll get all the news you need from there. If you're not subscribed to our mailing list, do that as well on narrative.com, because that will ensure that you will know about the next one. And the other way to ensure that is by subscribing to this very podcast, Leadership Story Talks, wherever you find podcasts. And our YouTube channel, don't forget that. YouTube Narrative has a YouTube channel, which is where the live stream is, and you can see everybody as well as hear them. So I encourage you to check all of that out, and really excited for what's next, as you said, Jules. But yeah, this was a real treat, and I can't wait to hear from our listeners and viewers what you all think about this.
And as I was watching some of the episodes, I nod my head a lot, but I can't help. I can't stay still, so I'm being actively engaged. And I'm like, okay, next time I'll try to be very, very like frozen poised. But I'm like, that's not me. I was like, okay, maybe it's not, picture perfect, but that was me just saying I resonate. Anything this person is
Mm,
saying is really resonating. So I just had to
yeah,
laugh. It's like a little
yeah.
bobblehead going forward
That's great.
for 2
Well,
hours.
clearly it was conducive to people telling these great stories, because that's really what we believe, right? Is that without listening, you can't tell a great story, or it's much more difficult. And so I do feel like we gave a space of listening, and all the people who were viewing and listening at the same time during the live stream also did that for them. And clearly, we got some really great feedback from the storytellers.
And we need to model our own behavior here, because we had folks behind the scenes who were incredible. Alexandra and Daphne, who, when you know what it's like with technology, everybody out there, like something doesn't work right away, you switch and orders change, and they were cool and support and showing up. So that's a big, big piece of saying thank you right now. So we have a good excuse
Yes.
using this.
Yes, thanks to our great producer, Alexandra Boyd, who puts all these together and put that event together. That's great. And Daphne Dykeman, who's been behind the scenes doing all the research and chatting with our guests beforehand. So yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you reminded us of that too. Wonderful. Well, anything else you wanna say, Jules, or should we close this one up?
Next session's going to be, and then who else we're going to be talking to this year, because it doesn't stop. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's gonna be exciting. We've got a lot of people in the pipeline, and you're going to learn all about it as we continue on and onto the next 100 episodes. All right. Well, thanks so much, Julienne, and and thanks everybody for listening. You know where to find us, and we really look forward to our next episode. Thank you so much. See you later.
For more information on the narrative listening and storytelling method and how it can help your business, go to narrative.com.